Hi, Abba. It's great to see you again. I can't believe that this is episode 11 already of Who Do You Want to Be? And it's amazing. It's been a great journey so far. And one of my personal highlights was when our families met up for the very first time on Saturday. And when I introduced myself to your husband, saying, Hi, I am the podcast lady, because you told me that he would refer to me as that, as the podcast lady. My daughter was asking me afterwards, Mommy, what is a podcast? So I explained it to her in the words of an 8-year-old. And I basically just told her that we are talking about different stories about mindset and AI. And then there was the next keyword. She knows what the mindset is because we are talking about that a lot. But she didn't know so much what AI was. So she was asking me, and I thought, okay, how can I break this down in simple terms for an 8-year-old to understand? And I said, well, you have an Alexa in your room, right? So Alexa is waking you up in the morning so you can get ready for school. But Alexa is also listening to you when you ask her to play certain music, for example. And the other day I heard that you were asking Alexa to tell you a joke. And then Alexa is doing those things. So that's an example for AI. But I didn't take it much further than that. And that actually made me wonder, in how far should my daughter already know about AI? What do you think, Abba?
It's so funny because we had similar situation in my house. My daughter came to me randomly a couple of days ago and she said, Mommy, what is chatty patty like this? She kept, and I'm like, you mean chat GPT? And she's like, yeah, that chatty patty. That's what she kept saying. My daughter is 7. So I said, ChatGPT is a tool that I work with. Why do you ask? She's like, because you're always saying ChatGPT, ChatGPT, ChatGPT. Can you tell me what it is? And I honestly was like, how do I explain this to her? And then the other interesting thing happened was we were reading one of her school books. And in that school book, there is an evil character, which is an artificial intelligence robot. Yesterday, she didn't ask me what is an artificial intelligence robot. I think she was too tired. So she kind of just wanted to get the book read and done. But yeah, like you said, we need to start having these conversations with our kids because our kids, no matter what age they are right now, they are going to be growing up in an AI first world. So there are two conversations or thought starters that we need to start thinking about already is A, how do we talk to them about it? And what do we tell them? Because it's not easy. And I work in AI. And this conversation was coming to my mind a lot lately because I help female entrepreneurs learn how to use AI. And I love what I do and I'm very excited helping them. And then I realized, but how am I helping my own kids? And it gave me a little bit of mom guilt because I'm like, I'm spending all my time preparing myself to help female founders and entrepreneurs learn how to use AI. But what about my own kids? You know? So there's no straightforward answer to this. But what I do know is that we need to start having the conversation. And in order to have the conversation, we need to know what it is ourselves and need to understand everything that it's good for and everything that it's not good for so that we can transmit that to our kids and have the right conversations with our children.
Hmm. Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think the first step really is for us to understand what are the positive sides of AI that we would really love our kids to understand so that they can fully utilize it. For example, that they have an innate understanding of how to become more productive with the use of AI, for example, or how they can use it to get very nice ideas, in a way, maybe even inspiration. But then at the same time, also for them to understand what are the limitations. Like, for example, I don't want them to become lazy in that sense because they know, oh, I can always go to ChatGPT and, it will always give me the answers that I'm looking for. But in a way, it is like us back then. I remember when I was growing up, when I was just a teenager, mobile phones suddenly entered the world. And it was something completely revolutionary, something completely new. My mom had no idea, what this could become. Of course, she didn't. For her, it was just a practical device. She could use it to call my dad from anywhere. And then I remember there were these little games on it, like Snake, for example, or Nokia and other things. And it was exciting. And for us as children back then, it was just natural. You know, we were exposed to mobile phones, we started to play around with them, and very soon we understood what to do with those phones so much better than our parents. Even though, you know, our parents were the grown-ups and we always thought, okay, our parents know everything. But with everything technological that is new, it's not necessarily those who already know everything, but it's those that have an innate curiosity, like children, for example. So just like it is now with Gen Z as well, they are technologically a lot more advanced than, you know, people like you and me who are trying to get into it, but we are not growing up with it. So now our children are growing up with it. Ultimately, of course, they will know so much more about AI than we do. But it's our responsibility, at least in my understanding, to at least give them a good starting point for them to go into AI with the right understanding of this technology. But
Yeah,
that requires of me that I know what it is and what I can use it for, right?
100%. And we need to be able to guide them because they're still small. I mean, those of you who have smaller kids, let's say under the age of 13, they're still small, they're still very malleable, their minds are still developing, the way they think is developing, and they still need parental guidance on what's good about AI and what's not good. For example, a simple example of what we want them to know is that these tools are not humans. So they are not your friends. They might behave like friends, but they're not your friends, right? They're just machines. So some things to prevent any unnecessary danger that they could get into, we need to start informing them of it. And the interesting thing you said about Gen Z, now Gen Z has never seen a world without the internet
Mhm.
or mobile
Yeah.
phones. Our kids now, okay, we're getting into an AI first world, so they would have seen a little bit of a world without AI. But their kids, the next generation, is not going to know a world without AI. So it's a very interesting time we are in right now. And like you said, maybe it will become second nature. Like mobile phones, we just kind of blended into them. The internet, we just kind of started adapting. When the internet came out, there was also quite a lot of fear. Similar
Mm.
fears to AI. Is it going to take our jobs? Are kids going to cheat? Are they going to plagiarize? And that's why all these plagiarism detection tools started coming up in schools. So education is again going to go through a change. But the main difference between the internet revolution and the AI revolution is that the speed at which the AI revolution is happening is just much faster. So there are many conversations to be had on many different levels. But the only way we can have constructive conversations is by educating ourselves first. And I want to highlight here that just because you use AI for your work, ChatGPT, for example, maybe you're using Grok, maybe you're using Canva, whatever, doesn't mean you are necessarily AI literate.
Hmm.
There is a very big difference. You may be using the tools to get work done, but maybe you don't know the limitations or the back end technicalities of what's required to be known in order to really understand the tools. And while I don't think you need to be technical or understand how the tool is built, you do need to know the limitations of the tools and why those limitations exist and how these things are going to evolve so that we can communicate that with our children. Because, like you said, as they grow older, they're going to know more about this maybe than we do. So we will need to really stay up to date to ensure that they're not falling into the prey of AI, but really embracing all the good while being very aware of the limitations.
That was an excellent point that you just made because I was thinking, you know, especially when there's something that hooked my daughter's curiosity, she starts with one question and then there is like an entire waterfall of whys following. Why, and what for, and what is this good for, and what can I use this for, and so on and so forth. And like you were just saying, when I would start this conversation with her, I would not necessarily be able to answer all those questions about AI. You said that we are not necessarily AI literate, we as in all the parents out there. And I would absolutely say I am not AI literate. I'm using ChatGPT, I'm enjoying it, I have the feeling that my prompting is getting better, but that's it. I'm at a point where I get what I want. So my personal curiosity to go a lot more beyond that is very limited because I'm thinking I have what I need right now. So I don't need to go further than this. But when I'm imagining a conversation with my daughter who would then be asking me, okay, what else can it do? Where are its limitations? What can it not do? How is it going to develop? For example, I don't know what she's going to ask me, to be honest with you, but I could imagine those would be questions and I would not be able to answer them. So before we call this mom guilt, because this was another nice phrase that you used earlier, the question is really, okay, what is the conversation that I'm able to have? And also, which conversation am I comfortable with having with my kids? And am I going to show them what I know about AI, or is this too much already? Like what is the border for us? Let's put it that way. Like what can I show them? What do I want to show them? What can I explain to them? What do I want to explain to them? I haven't really thought about this yet. The only thing that I really know is that I do not want to restrict my daughter from her curiosity about her AI. I want her to ask all those questions and I want her to at least get an initial understanding of what it is and what it is not.
And I think there's no answer to how do you prepare yourself and what are the limits and what is the boundaries. Because the truth is, no matter how much we try to make ourselves AI literate, the tools are going to keep changing. And
Hmm.
the literacy that we need is ongoing. I think it's also okay to tell your child when they ask you questions that I'm not 100% sure.
Hmm.
That this is developing so fast, I don't know if anybody's sure, which is why we have to be more aware of the tools and use them with caution. So while we learn how to use them to help us to be more creative, to develop the certain skills faster, we also need to be wary of the downsides of them. And the only way to be wary of them is to do your own research. I work in AI, but not specific to kids. So I'm not a kids educator. I'm a parent who's just being the parent I know to be. I don't know how to guide people on this purely because I'm not qualified to. However, I don't think anybody is because this is all so new. So some online research along with going with your gut and what you think is right for your child is what we can do. There are lots of parenting coaches out there who advise on how to guide your children through certain things. Do they know how to guide our children through the evolution of AI? I don't even know. Maybe they do. Maybe they don't. I don't know. I don't know if anybody does. There are quite a few people in the space, though, who are specializing in helping children understand AI. They're working in the education system, so they're working with schools and authorities and also with kids. So there are a few people I follow, and what we can do is we can put their names in the show notes if anybody's interested to check them out. But that's what I would recommend. Find the people who are working in this space, who you like their point of view, and really get some guidance from them. Because the intersection of parenting and technology, and I'm not talking screen time here because that's a whole different conversation. I'm talking about the intersection of parenting and artificial intelligence is a whole new genre of specialization that I think very few people have.
Yeah, that is true. This is definitely a conversation that we need to keep having about just also for us and for all of you out there to get this clarity about, what is our understanding as parents dealing with AI and what do we want our kids to understand about AI. So I think what we can do in our next episode is really to start thinking about the mindset that we want to develop in our kids when it comes to technology and AI. I'm very confident that that will be a great conversation to have because, as you were saying, as parents, we do have a good understanding of our kids and we know where they are right now developmental wise, but we also know where do we want to get them to. And since we've been speaking about soft skills and mindset before, we can create a lot of value for our kids, preparing them in the right way for their future, knowing that it will be a very technological and AI-based future for them. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation next. And as always, I hope that we will get a lot of comments and questions from you out there. So let us know what moves you, what you would like to know about AI for your own children, and we'll do our best to get back to you on those. See you next time for episode 12.